Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again we are going to review a week of Mikey's training, the client who I do vlogs for. That's created some funny stuff, by the way. There's been people who've literally jumped up, and I've had to ban trolls for that. Oh, you only have one client, and I've showed you guys evidence of a lot more. And my clients themselves have come in and said, yeah, he's got a lot of clients, because they see more than you guys do. It's ridiculous. But Mikey is the one who I vlog. He sends me a lot of videos. I like his progress. He's got a lot of equipment to work with, and it's fun to vlog his stuff, and he doesn't mind. So let's get into a week. Max effort day, he did bench press. This is, wider grip bench, standard bench, with 65 pounds of bands. The Rogue Green bands are 65 pounds. And yeah, this is a tough lift. Anyone who's done heavy bands, because again, his best max bench has been 340, right, which we actually have done in one of the vlogs. He started at a 295 when I started coaching him. So we put 45 pounds on that bench, right? So 65 pounds of band tension. We're getting close to 20% of his max in band tension. And anyone who's worked with heavy bands like that knows they're tough. So we're pretty happy with his lift overall there. And then I believe we are doing regular pause bench in the rotation for him after this. I know people are used to saying, well, you've done all the other bars and you've done floor presses and everything else. What's up with this? Well, sometimes we keep it basic, Sometimes we like to keep it basic and simple. And Mike does a lot of tens. You guys will notice a trend there. Most of his supplemental work is around 10 reps. And I've had a few people ask that. They're like, well, why the tens? Well, usually my drug-free guys, I like to keep them mostly with tens. I'm not saying we don't do other rep ranges. I tend to keep them with tens for a very long period of time. Okay? And he took that set to failure, by the way, as you guys noticed. That was a limit set for him. But, again, the percentages we're working off of. I like to do a lot of tens for drug-free guys. And it's because we need the good volume for hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is the hardest thing to get on a drug-free lifter, right? When people are using stuff, hypertrophy comes easier. We can focus a little more on other factors sometimes. I'm not saying we don't train for it or don't care about it, but there can be other things that we look for as far as different performance elements. Tens are really good for overall hypertrophy, especially for a lifter like this who we do max effort work and speed work every week, because we're addressing these other elements. And our supplemental work is generally done just to get you thicker, right? It's just to get you thicker, okay? And so for a lifter like him, I like to stick in that range. And, I have lifters with certain genetics who I might even do more volume and reps than that, right? People who are predisposed to, just not gaining muscle easily, I'll do the same thing. And that includes even if they go on stuff, if they're enhanced. Whereas in some of my other guys, some of my really fast twitch dominant lifters, because I do get some of those. They're relatively rare, but I have a couple. I'll let them do more fives. A lot of my guys who are on stuff will do more fives and things, fives and sixes. Okay, so it really depends upon what's going on with the lifter. But Mike is in that spot to where he doesn't have, any sort of extreme dominance as far as muscle fibers. He's not on anything. So I tend to stay around 10 reps for most of his supplemental work. But we saw there, we're keeping it very simple right now. His bench accessories are pause bench, incline bench, JM press, and then we do a lot of back work. Now in his case right now, we're hitting a lot of angles. Okay, complete back development. So he does weighted chins, he does pin lay rows, right? And he does snatch grip high pulls. So we're working a lot of different angles. Now he is trying to get a little lower on the chins because he did note that I had said before, well, we need a little more range of motion. I'm not saying we have to get into a dead hang, but a little more would be good. Now keeping in mind, he's doing a lot of reps. And so that is an issue of when you're doing 3 sets of 10 weighted, you get fatigued real fast. And I get that. So I allow him a little more leeway there on that because of the sheer amount of volume he's doing, and since we're doing them weighted and stuff. Again, I allow a little leeway, but over time, as I've told him, I would like him to get a little more range of motion at the bottom, and we can count that as progressive overload, even with the same weight. Then we've got his rows in there, and his rows are getting relatively heavy. If you guys want to know what's on the bar, look at the sheet again at the start. It gives you a percentage of his bench max. He benches 340. So I program most stuff off percentages. Now, some stuff we do failure. Some stuff we'll do reps in reserve. But if I can program off of percentages because I want certain ratios, that's what we go for. Like I would ideally like my lifters to be able to pen lay row as much as they bench. So we can work towards doing sets of 10 at 70%. And his snatch grip high pulls are just getting stupid strong. I think he's doing 265 here. I believe he's got 265 on the bar. And he's doing sets of 10 with that, three sets of 10. But yes, we do a lot of pulling for the entire back because we're hitting the different angles. Again, horizontal pull, vertical pull, then a snatch grip high pull. It's like working 3 different angles. It's almost like, again, doing like bench, incline, overhead press for pressing, for the interior side. So we've got a lot of variation there because he needs it. We've got to keep bringing that back up, right? We need his back to just get thicker top to bottom. And I'm not saying, again, when I say that, I'm not saying Mike doesn't have a big back. We need more back. It'll help him, particularly for a lifter like him who struggles with the deadlift. He has fairly short arms, great bencher. We've got to keep building his whole back and posterior chain up, especially his lower back. You'll see a lot of reverse hypers in here. We maxed on the safety bar good morning for him because we're using it for rep work now. I've switched him over from the cambered bar. We're going to run the safety bar for a while. You guys noticed in the vlogs for a long time he did a lot of cambered bar good mornings. Now I'm taking him over the safety bar. Again, a little better upper back, and I feel it gives a little more hamstring development. He does not have a lot of hamstring tools available. Okay. He's got a reverse hyper. He doesn't have a GHR. He doesn't have a leg curl. Doesn't have anything like that. So we have to rely on things like reverse hypers and good mornings and pull variations to build his hamstrings for the most part. So at this point, we're at a point where he needs just more posterior chain in general. We need more glute, more hamstring, more erector for his deadlifts. So it makes sense for us to work this bar in. This bar tends to give really, really good carryover to the deadlift. Fantastic carryover to the deadlift. And I've also got him in a phase where I'm trying to do a little bit less axial loading. This bar forces us to use a lighter weight, therefore less axial loading. And you guys will notice I have him doing belt squats, which he's again progressively overloading them. We're getting stronger at them. He's doing belt squats in replacement of doing any sort of back squat or box squat for his volume work. Because again, I want to keep building his quads and hips up, right? We want to build those quads and hips. But I'm trying not to overwhelm him. We had to do like a lighter week, like a deload recently, because he was starting to get a little beat up. Again, low back was getting beat up, hips were getting beat up. So I want to be leery of that. I want to give him a phase to where we unload the spine a little bit. So replacing any back squats with a belt squat, great way for us to continue to build his lower body without spinal compression, without axial loading. So he can recover a little better. Right, and we're really hammering those reverse hypers, so you guys will notice we're getting progressively higher volume and heavier weight on there, so that we can continue to again build that low back up, because we're losing some of that by doing this. And the same thing, we go over to the safety squat bar instead of the camber bar. He's forced to use a lighter weight. Okay, this is great for his overall recovery while still hammering those weak links. But again, it hits hamstrings a little harder. This belt squat is just purely lower body. So we're hitting these areas to thicken everything up for him, but in a way that he can recover from. And eventually we'll go back to heavier types of good mornings, using a different bar. We'll go back to some back squatting, box squatting. But right now, he's in a phase where I need him to hypertrophy. I need him to thicken these areas up, but I gotta quit beating him into the ground. Okay? Because he was getting pushed a little bit too hard in this last phase, up until we had to do a lighter deload week. So, again, I'm trying to be very, very careful of that. Give him some good hypertrophy. He probably got thicker and gained muscle. He looks bigger already since we got that lighter week. And we're really focusing on recovery for a phase, just getting good quality volume in a recovery, and then we'll start loading more and more of the heavier stuff up. And then after that, he did the reverse hyper. So his supplemental work for today for the lower was safety squat bar good mornings, belt squats, and he uses a Spud Inc. hip squat belt like I do, and then reverse hypers. Speed bench, again, is pretty normal for him. I don't change up bars and stuff for Mike. I keep his speed bench very consistent. We just run a lot of band tension, and I believe it's 30%, and I run 50% of his max in bar weight. And for him, all we do is rotate grips. We usually do 3 sets of wide grip, which would be pinkies on the rings, which would be standard bench, 3 sets of medium grip and then 3 sets of close grip. And we do them in that order for him. So he starts with that rotation. So we do 3 sets of each. And again, I run his speed bench at 50% bar weight, and then 30% of his 1 rep max in band tension. And again, that's a relatively aggressive setup, and I do 9 sets of 3 with that. And he responds well to it. I mean, there's no doubt about that he responds to this programming. We've put 45 pounds on his bench within a year as a very advanced lifter who already had 11 to 12 years of training experience. Okay, and that's without drugs. That's a lot. So again, I know how to get his bench up. I know how to build Mike's bench. And we're trying to be careful with making too many other changes and doing too much stuff. We want everything to carry over to his deadlift. His deadlift is his worst lift right now. And so you guys will notice, again, we don't push a lot of pressing volume. It's not a lot of volume, right? Like even here, we just come in to do a couple sets of incline after the speed bench. He does some triceps. And that's all of his pressing. Same thing for the other day. We do 3 sets of bench, 3 sets of incline, then he just goes to triceps. Okay? 6 real work sets. You know, so if you really factor in the speed work and say, well, 9 sets of 3, really, if we were to put it into volume, I think speed work counts as about half. You know, it's really about 4 sets. It's 4 sets for his chest. All right, you throw in 3 sets of incline, that's 7 sets for his chest. And we do about 6 to 7 on the other day if we count the max as a set, right? And then we do triceps after that. And I do triceps just to keep Mike's triceps strong. His triceps are big, his arms are big. He doesn't need really a tricep focus, but we keep it in there because it's a strong point for him. So I just have him do just JM press variations year round. That's all we ever do for triceps for him. Triceps are a strong point. He's good at the JM press. We don't bother to change it. We just take bands off, on or off. Sometimes he'll do straight weight. You know, I might even have him come in and use a different bar, right, at some point. I like a lot of my guys to do axle bar, like my one guy, Jay, who you guys saw do the Zercher squat, the 455 Zercher squat from the floor in that training collage. We do a lot of axle bar JM presses for him because he doesn't have bands and chains in his setup, but he's got an axle bar. We do a lot of JM presses with that. And so I like to rotate to those other bars for my guys. But we use accommodating resistance on it. So instead, so that we don't beat the elbows up, we'll do stuff like bands, reverse bands, chains, whatever we need to do for a lifter like this, who we do lots of those. But he has really strong elbow tendons. They're well developed for all the tendons, and is where his tricep inserts around the elbow. So we're not that worried about beating that up. So I keep him on JM presses. And he responds well to them. And again, triceps are never a weak link for this guy. And again, the same sort of rotation we normally do. Those may have gotten out of order when I put them into the file, but it's chin ups, pin lay rows, snatch grip high pulls. Kind of like what you guys see me doing at this point. I do chin ups, I do pin lay rows, I do hang pulls. Not quite the same as a snatch grip, right? I do shoulder width grip. So we've got to have a lot of variation there for that. We've really got to hit his traps and stuff hard. I need all those angles to make sure we work all the parts of his back, all the parts of his trapezius. Because again, he needs that. We need that to get his deadlift up. A drug-free lifter, that's a very, very hard area to develop. Traps in general are hard. When you see a guy with massive traps, he either put in a ridiculous amount of work there, he's a genetic freak, or he's blasted hard. Okay, that's just the way it is. So for someone like Mike, we've got to put all these lifts in to try to build all of the trap, middle, upper, lower, all of it. In addition to really hammering his lower back and hamstrings hard. We have to, because again, we've got to get his deadlift up. And I'll probably take him over here soon to maybe even going to deeper box squats if we need to. Because I feel like, again, deep box squats are great for deadlifts. Right? They're phenomenal for it. So I may even reduce his box height here in the future coming up, just to push his deadlift harder. Particularly if we go back to doing box squats as a supplemental lift, not just for speed work, but for actual rep work, I'll probably take him to a deeper box, because here he's on about a parallel box. Right? And you guys notice again, we've changed bars again. You guys have seen him do speed squats with the cambered bar. You've seen him do speed squats with the straight bar now. You've seen him do them with safety squat bar. I rotate them. About every 3 weeks I change bars. And we just run the same setup. We just base these maxes on what his max is with that bar. And we run the band tension and everything, and the percentage is constant. So for his waves, I don't change weight. I don't change bands. I just rotate his bars for that. And then we do the same thing with his speed pulls. You know, I rotate him back and forth between conventional and sumo. And sometimes I'll throw in a phase of deficits, right? Like a 1 inch or a 2 inch deficit pull, all for speed work. And it works, even against bands, it's fine. So again, this phase is sumo. This phase is sumo for him. So again, we're working that wider stance. And again, those belt squats will carry over to this also. So for Mike, he's relatively balanced as far as sumo versus conventional. I get a lot of lifters, I've said it, I literally have guys in both directions. I have guys who pull 50 pounds more sumo than they do conventional, and I have guys who pull 50 pounds more conventional than they do sumo. I've got guys in both categories who are 500 plus deadlifters. Now Mike's still working towards the 500 deadlift. And again, that shocks people because he's strong at everything else and he's thick. I think that throws people off. But keeping in mind leverages, right? He's got shorter arms. He's a great bencher. We have to work hard for his deadlift. He's fairly balanced, though. His sumo and conventional are pretty close to each other. We don't see 40 and 50 and 60 pound gaps. So after the speed work, it's very, very easy for him. We do some good mornings and he does reverse hypers, right? 3 sets of each. 3 sets of each, and we called it a day. Although I will be continuing to increase his volume, so I may take him up to 5 sets on the reverse hypers at some point. Just to, again, continue to work that low back. And that's something I'm doing more of for my guys who need this. Fortunately for me, my guys who have deadlift issues like this, who really have weak low backs, they all have access to reverse hypers at the moment. Either they have found a powerlifting gym that has one or they own one. So I've had one guy at a powerlifting gym, that would be Doug. Everyone else owns one. So we're in a very, very good spot there. So for me as a coach, that makes me very, very happy. Now, some people would say, well, a lot of people can't afford it. That's true, but usually people who can afford coaching can oftentimes afford that situation. Not always, but, you know, more often than not. But as a coach, that makes me very happy because it makes my job easier for these guys because I have to come up with more creative ways to work their lower back in the way that I want. And it usually would involve band pull-throughs. If they have access to a normal 45-degree hyperextension, we'll use that. But in Mike's case, he bought the reverse hyper at my suggestion, and we're making really good use of it. It's going to be a fantastic tool for him in the long term. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.